In a world torn by nuclear ruin, where every day could be the last, a girl finds solace in radio signals, carrying either a spark of hope or a sign of the end. Wendy is the daughter of a decorated World War II hero and a brilliant radio technician, capable of cracking any signal, no matter how classified or encrypted. She inherited this rare gift, as did her 11-year-old daughter, Mayday, who spends all her free time with her grandfather. One night, Wendy accidentally intercepts a chilling transmission, a pilot reporting several unidentified objects approaching. He fears it's the beginning of a nuclear strike, warning that within 10 minutes, most of the US could be wiped out in radioactive ash. The operator on the other end dismisses it as a systems malfunction and urges the pilot to reboot his navigation, warning against spreading panic. Back home, Wendy puts Mayday to bed. The girl is close to her grandfather but understands when her mom insists it's late and she needs rest before school. Later that night, Wendy turns on the TV and watches in horror as a live news segment is interrupted. A nuclear missile hits a shopping mall in New York City, triggering a massive 9.2 magnitude earthquake. The White House and the president are evacuated. All civilian flights are grounded. Panic takes hold, but the threat is terrifyingly real. The news anchor cuts the broadcast short as emergency evacuation procedures begin, and national television goes dark as a state of emergency is declared across the country. Terrified by the unknown, Wendy runs outside and sees 4 nuclear missiles flying past her house. Realizing the threat is all too real, she rushes to evacuate her family. She, her father, and her daughter jump into a pickup truck, but the engine won't start. Every attempt to get it going fails, and time is quickly running out. In a desperate moment, knowing they could die at any second, Wendy makes the heartbreaking decision to abandon the old man and runs off, trying to save her only daughter. 2 years after the nuclear attack, Wendy and her daughter Mayday, like all other survivors in the U.S., have completed their quarantine. During that time, Soviet flags appeared throughout their territory, signaling that the land now belongs to them. President Ronald Reagan chose not to retaliate, a decision that spared hundreds of millions of lives. Now living in a modest home, Wendy tries to distract herself with yoga, mimicking the movements of women on TV. Mayday, fed up with being stuck inside, decides to go out. Her mother begs her not to, warning that it could still be dangerous outside, with possible infected people roaming, but Mayday ignores her. Outside, she grabs a fresh newspaper and spots a man in a hazmat suit and gas mask standing behind the fence. Spooked, she runs back home in a panic. A few days later, Mayday heads back to school. At the bus stop, she runs into 2 classmates, Betty and Lynn. They treat her like some poor, troubled girl and clearly don't want to talk. Feeling the tension, the disconnect in interests, and the social divide, Mayday goes back home. Later on, she decides to return to school anyway so she doesn't fall behind, though she ends up running late. Meanwhile, Wendy heads to her job at a roadside diner. She thinks all the talk about aliens and the Roswell incident is just a bunch of made-up nonsense with no real evidence behind it. It's been exactly 2 years since the nuclear strike, and students are sharing how they've coped. Some admit they were terrified, some have learned to adapt, and others still live in constant fear of radiation and the coughing people they see around. Many of the kids say Reagan was a coward and should have destroyed the Soviet Union, but Mayday believes he made the right call. Human life is worth more than pride. Their teacher talks about the mysterious Area 51 and aliens, but insists it's all just folklore. Not everyone buys that, but no one wants to argue, so they go along with her. After class, a boy named Jeremiah tries to strike up a conversation with Mayday, but she keeps her distance. When a sudden threat alert is announced, the kids drop to the floor. Jeremiah shows concern for her and tries to shield her, but moments later, the bell rings for the next class. That's when a nerdy student named Ronald tries to talk to Mayday. She coldly shuts him down, telling him he wouldn't have a chance with her, even if he were the last guy on Earth. The story jumps forward 10 years. It's revealed that everything we've seen so far has been a series of painful memories haunting Mayday. She's now 21 years old and sees a therapist regularly to work through the psychological trauma she experienced as a child. Her face is scarred, and she takes medication to counter the effects of radiation on her body. During one of her sessions, Mayday recalls being abducted and taken aboard an alien spacecraft. She doesn't know if that was the first time it happened, or if it had happened before, but after that night, she never saw her mother again. Her therapist believes these memories might not be real. He suggests they could be a defense mechanism, invented by her mind to shield her from something even more painful. He proposes hypnosis as a way for Mayday to revisit her memories and find clarity, to finally understand what really happened and begin to heal. If she wants to move forward and stop fearing the future, she has to confront the past. Under hypnosis, Mayday is transported back to some of the darkest corners of her childhood. She finds herself in the middle of the mysterious Area 51, surrounded by endless sand and jagged rocks. There's no one in sight, but she can sense a presence. Something is watching her. She feels exposed, vulnerable, constantly under threat. In contrast to these frightening memories, there's one that stands out as brighter. Her father, a celebrated astronaut who not only walked on the moon, but even explored its far side. But he wasn't a perfect father, or husband. He was rigid and controlling, always focused on rationing supplies. Clean drinking water was scarce, and food was not to be played with. At age 11, Mayday was a lively, playful child who loved to joke around, but her father would shut that down quickly. He could raise his voice or even lash out physically if someone did something he didn't approve of. Despite everything, Mayday still sees him as a symbol of pride. Before one of his missions, she gave him a stuffed bear and asked him to leave it on the moon, and bring it back when he returned next time. Back in the present, Mayday finishes tidying up the house and heads into the garage, where she keeps her late grandfather's old radio equipment. She remembers everything he taught her, and she still uses the radios regularly to connect with random people across different frequencies. She's outgoing, curious, and always searching for someone who might have had a close encounter with a UFO. During one of her sessions on the radio, she makes contact with a truck driver who mentions seeing strange lights in the sky. Mayday is convinced he saw aliens, but the man is exhausted. It could have just been his imagination. Still, she doesn't dismiss it. As she scans through frequencies, she picks up a strange, unexplained signal. Intrigued, she decides to crack its code. Her obsession doesn't sit well with her mother, and it leads to another heated argument between them. Some time later, a strange couple arrives at the cafe. The manager points out to Wendy that their son seems unwell, constantly coughing. Other patrons are uneasy about the boy and want him removed, but no one dares approach the family. The manager asks Wendy to handle it, and reluctantly, she agrees, fearing she might lose her job otherwise. Wendy gently asks the elderly couple and their son to leave, but they explain that everything is fine. The boy isn't coughing due to an illness, but because he's in the final stages of cancer and poses no threat to anyone. They've come to this desolate area, hearing rumors about Area 51 and extraterrestrials with advanced technology, in hopes that alien intelligence could cure their son. Wendy is skeptical, but the elderly couple genuinely believes it, as doctors have given up, and aliens are their last hope. Meanwhile, Mayday continues picking up the strange signal, determined to decipher it. As she works, her mind and memories start to blur. When she finally cracks the code, it feels as though she's transported to another place. She wakes up in the middle of a desert, trying to make her way home, unaware that a flying saucer hovers behind her. A few days later, she returns to school, but the classes are interrupted by a radiation check. A man in a hazmat suit uses a dosimeter and discovers that Ronald's radiation levels are dangerously high. The boy is immediately taken away and isolated to prevent any risk to the others. Terrified by the situation, the other students close their eyes and ears, trying to distance themselves from the horror unfolding. When they learn that Mayday's father is an astronaut, the students mock her again. But this time, she stands her ground, defending herself, and is sent to the principal's office. Laughter and joy are soon interrupted by another alarm, forcing the students to hide under their desks. Later, Wendy encounters the elderly woman again. This time, the woman is in the desert, grieving beside a makeshift grave for her son. She explains that the aliens had promised to heal him and return him in 51 days, but nothing has happened. She doesn't know if her son is alive or where he is, and her despair is overwhelming. Soon after, Wendy learns that Mayday's father's space mission was cancelled, and he never went anywhere. This creates a conflict, as her husband won't explain where he's been all this time. Mayday witnesses her parents' arguments growing more intense, and the emotional distance between them deepens. The next morning, Mayday's parents continue to clash, unable to compromise. Trying to fix things, she shares stories about her radio adventures. She talks about connecting with people from the Soviet Union and learning that Americans never went to the moon. These comments deeply offend her father, who risks his life every day to support his family. Many astronauts have given their lives for the pursuit of knowledge, and Mayday has no right to belittle their sacrifices. Enraged, her father leaves without saying goodbye, leaving Mayday in tears. Later that evening, she brings a school friend into the garage and proudly shows off her late grandfather's radio equipment. When she picks up a signal, she overhears a conversation between a fighter pilot and an operator, calling off a suppressive fire. As a result, an unidentified aircraft crashes just a few miles from their house. Mayday is cut off from the transmission as they begin tracking her location. Intrigued by the crash site and its black box, Jeremiah suggests they go investigate. But Mayday is too afraid to go, so she gives him one of her rations and asks him to keep her updated on the findings. A little later, Mayday turns off the home phone to watch the news. This annoys her mother because her father was supposed to call, but couldn't due to her actions. He is leaving on another space mission, which is being broadcast live. Mayday is a little late to class and sees the rocket carrying her father explode in midair. Mayday and Wendy are devastated by the loss and hardly leave the house. Needing support, the girl tries to reach Jeremiah, but he doesn't respond. A few days later, Betty and Lynn try to tease Mayday again, but she stands up for herself, seriously hurting the girl's pride. Ronald, not giving up hope, still tries to get closer to Mayday, but she rejects the geeky guy. Meanwhile, agents show up at the girl's house, having tracked her location. They confiscate the radios and other devices because her interference led to human casualties. She got involved in a conversation during a secret operation, causing millions in damages. The special services can't ignore what happened but want to understand how the schoolgirl managed to hack the encrypted signal. Upon learning about her grandfather and deceased father, the agent realizes Mayday is a talent, but now she represents a threat, and her actions must be closely monitored. In the end, the girl was sent to prison, where she spent 12 days. During that time, she was tortured and abused, eventually revealing everything she had overheard during the live broadcast. These events continue to haunt Mayday. It's incredibly hard for her because she's lost loved ones, her father, her grandfather, and even her best friend. It was later revealed that Jeremiah went to investigate the crashed plane and disappeared without a trace. A few days later, Mayday followed him and found the wreckage of the aircraft. While trying to find her friend, she didn't notice the flying saucer until it was within its range. As a result, the aliens abducted Mayday, keeping her on their ship all night. The next morning, she returned home, but with a disfigured face and arm covered in terrible scars. Wendy was shocked by her daughter's appearance and tried to care for her, but Mayday's condition began to deteriorate. At first, she lost consciousness, and soon she started sleeping 16 hours a day, hardly getting out of bed. Each day, she grew worse, which began to worry her mother. Mayday felt nauseous, collapsed for no reason, and couldn't stay on her feet. Realizing something had to be done, Wendy took her daughter to the hospital, but it was too late. Her daughter had been exposed to severe radiation, which led to rapid cancer development. Now in the 4th stage, doctors were powerless, and her mother had to watch her 11-year-old daughter die. Sores began appearing on Mayday's body, and she lost almost all of her hair. Wendy spent every moment with her, but eventually, her daughter's heart stopped. The doctors used a defibrillator and brought her back to life, but warned that it was inevitable, and she had only a few days left to live. Recalling the words of the elderly woman from the cafe, Wendy began searching for an alternative way to save her daughter. She realized that the aliens were her only hope, and she needed to find the location of the mysterious Area 51. Through studying legends and maps, and catching a radio signal on the last working radio, Wendy managed to pinpoint where the aliens resided. Stealing her daughter from the hospital in the middle of the night, she headed to the crash site, hoping that extraterrestrial technology would cure her of cancer. Soon, the aliens arrived and took Mayday. The next morning, Wendy woke up with similar scars on her face and arm, believing this was the price for saving her daughter. That evening, the police arrived at her house to investigate what was going on. The hospital reported the child's abduction, but Wendy claimed her daughter asked to be taken home. At the same time, the woman admitted she had handed her daughter over to the aliens, causing the police to look at her as though she were insane. In the end, Wendy was sent to prison for being a mother who couldn't handle her parental responsibilities. Soon, she found herself in a facility resembling a bunker. The detective wanted to understand what Wendy had done to her daughter and where she was now. Not believing the nonsense about aliens, he decided to send her for involuntary psychiatric treatment, and then move Wendy to prison to serve time for potential murder and the concealment of her daughter's body. It was a heavy trial for the woman who had lost her daughter. She tried to explain her belief in aliens, but they considered her insane. She tried to find her daughter and sent radio signals into deep space, but no one ever answered. Mayday heard her mother and wanted to reply, but the aliens had taken her too far away. The girl seemed to be in another dimension, seeing Earth as a distant planet, somewhere among the clouds. Going through painful memories, the present Mayday confronts her own reflection, realizing that her fears still continue to control her. Meeting her younger self revealed the main secret the girl had been hiding inside. When she first left the house, she hadn't taken the newspaper because 2 men in protective suits and gas masks met her at the doorstep. They attacked the girl and abducted her right in front of her helpless mother, who couldn't resist the kidnappers. It seemed like her life had been a nightmare, but the psychotherapist begins to clarify Mayday's memories. The 2 men who grabbed her weren't criminals but people who saved her. In reality, Wendy had gone insane and had kept her daughter locked in the house, where the radiation levels were much higher than in the surrounding environment. They were slowly dying, and only these men saved the girl, giving her a chance to survive. Moreover, her father wasn't an astronaut but a janitor at NASA, and Jeremiah hadn't disappeared. Ronald wasn't taken out of the class as an infected person, and most of Mayday's memories were an illusion created as a defense mechanism. The girl had shielded herself from the traumatic truth, unable to admit that her own mother almost killed her by isolating her from the outside world. The doctor wants to help the girl, so he conducts an unusual session. Present in the room are all of her classmates, so she can see that they are alive and well, and that all her memories are illusions. The only truth is that her mother was indeed sent to prison, but for just one reason: she went insane and almost lost her daughter because of it. Understanding that Mayday still can't accept reality, the psychotherapist decides to take a desperate step, to arrange a meeting between mother and daughter. Meeting in prison, mother and daughter talk and listen to each other. They realize that many of their decisions were wrong, but their only goal was to protect the person they loved. Wendy loves her daughter, and despite all the childhood trauma, Mayday loves her mother. This conversation gives Wendy a purpose to fight for freedom, while Mayday finally sheds her childhood fears and illusions, realizing that the aliens, Area 51, and everything else were just products of her imagination, with no connection to reality. When pain and loss tear the soul apart, is it okay to retreat into an illusion to keep from losing your mind? Should we view her hallucinations as a sickness, or is it just a survival mechanism in a broken world? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.